माकडो दोन कमे दिवा पडटले तुम्ही तयार आसा
होय तयार आसा
खूप दिवपा लागले खूप दिवपा लागले वयता खंय यो बस बस काही माल घे त्याच्या गमट्यात घाल पळे ऐकाय ऐकाय गमट्यात घाल ही माठ सदांच गमट्यात करून दी त्याचे भूत परत येतले अरे उदक घे त्या पेपरावेडाचेर उडय
आगो कितें सांगू गेल्ल्या आयतारा ताका इगोजीन मिसा काडलेलो मी चलता चलता अकस्मात व्हडल्यान बोग मारूंक लागलो आवय लागशिल्ल्या लोकांक सारको भंय दिसलो आनी लोकांनी ताका इगोजींतलो भायर घातलो पूण एक मात आमकां कित्याक पडला गो आवय बापूय कोत्ता पाप आनी अशी भुरगीं दितात जाप पूण एक मात असल्या पिशांची म्हाका सामकी भिरांत दिसता ती केन्ना कितें करतात ती समजना तूं मात तेंगेर वतना सांबाळून वच चोड तेंगेर वचपाक नाका आमकां कित्याक पडला
स्किझोफ्रेनिया नावाचें एक गंभीर मानसीक दुयेंस जाला हितून भास जाता असले खुबशे कितें कितें लक्षणां जाता जशें चुकीचे विचार येवप अशें कितें ताका जाता हेच्या पयलीं जाला ताका
होय होय तशेंच जाता डॉक्टर
बरें हो एक मानसीक दुयेंस पूण तुमी कांय काळजी करपाची न्हय ताका हांव वखदां बरोवन दिता ताका ते टायमार ते वखदां दिवपाची
I think there are really two big challenges. The first is the enormous amount of stigma and discrimination against people with mental illness. And the second is the lack of skilled manpower to treat people with mental health problems, to help people with mental health problems. And I think these two are linked, they're connected to each other. Because when you are not able to access appropriate mental health care, you're more likely to face discrimination, and this perpetuates stigmatizing views in people's minds.
Sometimes I hear voices, like my head starts paining, then I get a headache, then
when you hear these voices and all, no, how do you stop them? How do you overcome this?
you can't overcome because you can't get sleep.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't get sleep.
And then how long they go on?
Maybe for the whole night.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes if you focus on your breathing, even at night, be calm and all, while lying down itself and doing the breathing exercise like this, taking a deep breath or just normal breath and all and leaving it, and instead of hearing or responding to these voices, concentrating on your breath, air going inside your nostril and then coming out again, going inside and then coming out again. If you do that, do you think it will help you?
Yeah.
Really?
It helps.
Okay. Can you try it? Take a breath. You can keep your eyes open, okay? And just focus on your breathing. No need of looking at me or something. Just focus on your breathing. Can you feel it going inside your nostril and then coming out again? Go taking in, coming out. Take in a breath, come out. Just normal breaths, not deep one, okay? Just feel the breath going inside your nostril, passing through your lungs and then coming out again.
I think that's a very important point. It isn't as if people with mental health problems aren't receiving any help.
You do a lot of work through or with people who are not medically trained, but who are able to find out let's say, the balance between those different type of resources that are available for people.
I think one of the biggest challenges to making these modern, as it were, the modern scientific treatments available to people in developing countries, one of the biggest challenges is the shortage of skilled mental health manpower. Now, this is true not only of mental health, this is also true of most other areas of healthcare in developing countries, whether you talk about HIV/AIDS care or maternal health. Our model is this, that we believe that a combination of lay health workers with medical or nursing staff working as a team provide the most effective and cost-effective model for providing mental health care. So I think it's very important to remember that When I talk of community health workers, I am talking about them as working as part of a team, and that typically the leadership of that team needs to be provided by a more skilled mental health professional.
Yeah.
In this way, what we can do is that we can reach out to a much larger population and yet use only few mental health professionals that are in fact available in the country. We don't need to wait and say we need to train thousands of more psychiatrists and psychologists before we scale up services. How do we make most use of those that are already available on the ground to scale up services?
Female is around 58 years of age and she's a widow, and she has one son. She doesn't feel like living because basically there are conflicts going on between her and her daughter-in-law, and she just feels like, you know, everybody neglects her, there is no respect and everything. So I asked her about any past suicidal, ideas or any, she have tried anything to do something to herself. So she said yes. Okay, she has once tried taking sleeping pills, which was just a week ago. So, I'm really concerned, like I don't know what exactly should be done. So,
Do you think maybe she might benefit from a course of antidepressants?
obviously, because she has a lot of physical complaints, like lack of sleep. Almost most of the depression, symptoms she's having: low mood, lack of sleep, palpitations, and irritability. Most of the major symptoms, she feels miserable, life isn't worth living. So I feel antidepressants is a must for her.
Can I ask you, have you been able to identify what support systems she has in place, social support systems?
Social support, basically she used to visit the, prayer meetings in a temple before, but since this thing is happening, she's really bored and she doesn't feel like, mixing with people and all. And she's also very close to her daughter. And now since she's married, she can't, and she lives far away, so she can't contact her regularly. But support is good from her daughter and the social groups around her. But she has stopped seeing because she's not well.
Given the fact that you're concerned about her suicide risk, do you think it's worthwhile maybe talking to her son about the risk of suicide, maybe trying to make some safety plan?
I think that's an important thing which we can do, because finally at home, it's a son who's going to be with her, and it's me just in the clinic, but at home there should be someone. So I think I should discuss this with her son also.
Maybe in the longer term, the social difficulty of the relationship with his wife and his mother might be something you can try and address.
In a long term, right now it's like the basic thing is a suicidal risk which we have to.
Yeah.
You see, it's very impressive to see how it functions here and how you can easily imagine that it will really work all over the world if these paths are taken to include mental health into the healthcare system. Now, what we're also facing is a number of countries where people have gone through large crises, such as warfare or natural disaster. Some of these countries don't have any public services to speak of, let alone mental health services. And yet we find an even more complex set of problems there, because there will be people who need mental health simply because of their own personal condition, and yet on top of that the whole population has to cope with loss and trauma.
But he complained about the afraid and chest full in the chest and sometimes insomnia.
So I think we have to find out what is behind her complaints. Why is she afraid? Why does she feel tired? Can we ask her?
មកថាពេលដែលចែរៀងខ្លាចរៀងព្រោះរៀងនេះទៅមូលហេតុអីធ្វើឲ្យខ្លាចរៀងភ័យចិត្តឲ្យខ្លាចទៅដូចតែមកថាពេលដែលខ្លាចហ្នឹងធ្វើមានឃើញគេខ្លាចឬក៏មិនមូលហេតុដែលធ្វើឲ្យខ្លាចហ្នឹងអាចតាមបានឃើញចិត្តឲ្យខ្លាចឃើញអីខ្លាចឃើញដូចរូបអីមកអញ្ចឹងចាតែឃើញនឹងភ្នែកឬក៏លើគេនិយាយឃើញដូចសមោលអីអញ្ចឹងនិយាយសពនឹងឃើញនឹងចានមិនឥឡូវអ៊ំមកថានិយាយសពល្អអញ្ចឹងឃើញវាមិនសពល្អឃើញដូចទេវតាទេអីទៅបើសិនបើយកនឹងឃើញល្អបើថាឃើញអាក្រក់ទៅឃើញខ្មោចងាត់ពីគ្រៀងពីគ្រៀងអីចឹងទៅខាត់ឪពុកម្ដាយចានស្លាប់មែនទេមិនប្រហែលជាស្លាប់នឹងឯងមកគេចាប់យកទៅពីចរន្តពលពូឆ្នាំណាដែលចាប់ហ្នឹង1976ចិត្តថ្ងៃហ្នឹងចាយនៅតែគិតណារឿងអតីតកាលឬមិននឹកឃើញម្ដងដូចថាគេចាប់ឪពុកអញ្ចឹងទៅ ចែកចាប់ដើមគិតទៅបន្ទាប់ពីគិតរួចមកឈឺក្បាលញាស់ទ្រូងអញ្ចឹង
ចា
អមមកតែពេលដែលឃើញគាត់ឲ្យតាចាយហ្នឹងណែអមមកស្រឡាញ់គាត់ឬក៏ទៅចិត្តគាត់ទៅនិយាយចិត្តគាត់អីមិន
ទៅនិយាយគាត់រត់អោគាត់ប៉ុណ្ណាគាត់អត់និយាយតមកខ្ញុំវិញ
Does she feel very sad when she sees her father?
អមមកថាបងពិបាកចិត្តនៅពេលដែលឃើញឪពុកហ្នឹងមក
មានអារម្មណ៍ពិបាកចិត្ត
ពិបាក After she dream she always difficult I mean that she is sad
Sad?
yeah
But she cries
sometimes she crying
after she sees her father
Yeah.
in the dream.
There is a rich tradition of indigenous systems of medicine. For example, Ayurvedic systems. There's also folk systems of medicine, particularly within the religious spectrum. People do a lot of things to help themselves. There's a number of different ways that people help themselves get better. For example, talking to their neighbors, trying to build on their social networks. Many people go to the doctor, the mainstream doctor, when they have mental health problems. The real difficulty is that all the advances that we have seen that have happened in modern psychiatry and clinical psychology, those advances are still not available to the majority of people in developing countries. So even today, most people rely on the same systems that they have relied on traditionally for centuries.
Angure kumuvu soga koronsozo meri umufasoni shaka kumenya iri jini yo ryaje riva ukwege muzuru kwega kanguka nyankobwa nsuzumira nsuzumira nyankobwa kanguka uko nani we uko nani sisi hapa uko nani we uko nani uko jini ulitoka wapi mumazi amazi yahe yo mu mwonga ni wowe uguma umurya mu mutima uyu umumena n'umutwe ni wowe mutuma azungurirwa jengira ndakwirukana ugende uremeye kugenda genda hoshi genda 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 ubunyene genda hoshi genda
There are different types of people that you should be working for. There is the community as such, that as a community is suffering from the effects of warfare, and there we try to work with the community through groups. But there's also those people that have to cope with loss on top of what their own personal problems would have been before the war started or before that disaster took place. That combination gives you a very special group of people to take care for. And I think it's important that we notice the difference between those two groups.
A mental health system in a post-conflict situation would necessarily have to address the needs of both these groups of people. But I would suggest that for the group who have suffered directly as a consequence of the conflict, the interventions would be much broader, because they might also include, for example, interventions to do with justice, interventions to do with security, interventions to do with reparation.
Ya loro nen bulan Setembro tinan rihun ida atu sia nolu resensia laksaur mahedi HTNI serang igreja suai ihatukurua totukulima lokrai laksaur ida kair hau lori hau baia SMP 2 toia SMP 2 nyabaku hau, nyatuku hau, nyatebe hau, nyakumesa husu hau, ohakarak hau kalai, se olakoi hau, agora omate, hau tau, hau lahatan, hau nonok date. Ia ema barak nya oin, nyakolu hau nyakalsa, hau karmetin hau nyakalsa, nyalori samurai, atu ta hau nyaliman. Hau husik tia kalsane nya kumesa hatoba hau ia sementileten. Ia ema baraknya oin nya fotin nya samurai hokilat tau ia hau nya hirus matan. Fote hau nya ain rua tula ia nya kabas leten nya perkosa hau. Ia ema baraknya oin hanesa animal ain hat. Ia loron sanolo resin hat. Tinan rihun ida atus sia sianolo resin sia. Nyalori hau ba iha timur barat. To iha timur barat. Ya tuku hitu to tuku sia. Nyamai kumesa perkosa hau. To tuku hatadernya vila. Mais nya perkosa hau. Milisi sira perkosa amil asfa hau mesak. Bahana fetomaluk. Ya koba lima tomaknya larang. Baka benain sira hotu. Sira perkosa hotu. Ba ami koba lima. Las mai hau mesak date. Perkosa hau to hau hetan labari. Hau na uan makne. Hau suba imi hakarak apresenta hau na uan. Bele lori mai. Liu sini ba mai. Ne hau na uan ne. Hau hetan hau na uan las ruar mesak masola. Iya koba lima larannya oin tomak. Perkosa hau iya muka umum. Ne hawetan labarik idane nyanaran Maria Robinson. Iha tanggal 6 Maria Robinson tun ia suai maksik nyanaran dengan Maria Robinson. Hawetan labarik las ia liur la iha kofaliman ya oin tomak. Ia anfeto maliknya barak anfeto tu molik milisi sira perkosa ami. Anfeto maluk balu iha kodin sira be iha kodin emala perkosa sira tambah sira hela hamutu kotentara. Ane feto maluk barak ami toba hamotu ruarua sira perkosa ami hare malu ami hototu molik de. Bati aferik sira nebe mengerti sira setaka sira na oin. Ba aling feto sira foin sae nebe otonomi sira hare ami hamnasa. Hamnya liak fon makne de.
Hawa karak uluk nanai hane mana ida kau di mana siraat kina usut diskulpa bermedu diskulpa monoain baik itu buat tambah mana sir makhalo buat hati nene mas kesir lah hene ya hawa karaku sudah itu buat hati ne emas sir ne
Hau hatene mabe hau labet teminaran hatene detian Indonesia tambah Indonesia mah bentuk laksaur hau hatene los Indonesia.
Orasnya sira iha suai?
Lah, ya Timor Barat.
Ya, obrigado.
Irmã Esmeralda, kira-kira komunidade desa ni anabane hare ita hoit ni uang uisa?
Sira lataman.
Hah?
Ya.
Sira hare diak? Tambah sa? Lah, sira hare hanasa, sira diang. Masyarakat bele simu ita ho ni uang bele
Dirar unet. Siran doang. Soal dokter nggak? Dia mau dia dokter right part. Lalu. Raja part.
Ala jaguar tu ka dong mai ram mo luang.
Jadi luang.
Aja la aja ka tu. Jaguar ni nuel dia. Jin, ledungnya lagi pulang ke rumah.
Kelam lah dia ya bang.
Nyaman, Jin berbuat kawan Jin.
Kamarit. Kamu nyam kamu. Kau dah cerita dah. Ini kamu dah biar kamu.
We have played one drama about war. Most of our observers some of them are weeping, crying, and even some of those who are acting, they also cry. But afterward, we found we are released and we slept nicely that night. And then I found it is a good way of expressing the problem you have inside you, outside to the people, to know that you have a problem. And also somebody who will observe you, and when he sees that, and then he feels sorry also. And then after that, there is peace. When we ask them to play, they act on war. Everything is war. There is no peace at all. Everybody act on war. People are running, people are dead, people are killed, people are shot, people are wounded, you know. This is the only thing they can make a drama about it.